need it at all? Which is an interesting question in and of itself. You're too busy here today.
I didn't understand anything.
Okay, irrelevant of whether we actually need the thing at all. The interesting questions of returning lists versus generators is a more general problem.
But where else do we encounter this problem?
Well, I'm sure there'll be many places in the future. This is a very important discussion, I would say.
Okay, can you give me another example where would you want to use a generator versus a list?
Anywhere where we currently return a list.
But
no, that's not strictly true. Anywhere where we return a list as a list comprehension. Well, the obvious place is anywhere where we do return and then a list comprehension.
As my integral.
I mean, it seems, and I don't really understand the intricacies of this, but it seems to me like you generally don't want to return a list if the search is, intensive in some way. So when you do next, that will kind of generate some heavy process to get you to the next thing. But generally, why not just give a list? I mean, you want to look at all of it. You just searched it.
Well, that's a non-obvious statement there, I would say, because you can always turn a generator into a list. So did you really want a list or not?
Well, generally you want a list, right? File search. I want all the files that satisfy this search criteria.
That's not obvious. That's part of the reason for this discussion.
No, it is totally obvious. I mean, that's how you look through your file system when you're using whatever operating system you're doing. It doesn't give you a generator. It gives you the frickin' list.
Why? No, but the question is, you only need a list if you want to index it. The only practical difference between a list and a generator. No, the only practical difference between the list and the generator is if you want to index it or print it out. But you can print out a generator as well. You just have to loop over it to print it out. Just a bit stupid, but you can do it.
I would say that the main difference is random access. But if it's a list of files for which you have no notion of where things should be in that list, then random access is not very useful.
And exactly. If you search your file system for a bunch of files, you don't know what order they're going to be in, so you're not going to want to index it.
Okay, I guess I'll turn the question around. What is the advantage of using a generator?
It's more Pythonic is the first major point.
Lists are very Pythonic.
No, but it is more Pythonic to return a generator than it is a list, because it is more memory, because it is less memory intensive, and for various other technically computer science reasons, like the fact you don't have to compute it all in one go, you compute it as you need it, and stuff like that. All the built-ins in Python 3 are generators. Range in Python 3 returns a generator, and map in Python 3 returns a generator, zip, everything. All of those things return generators in Python 3. So it has become the standard way of returning iterable objects. You return them as generators, not lists.
I would say we table this discussion and just say, well, you don't need file search at all.
Well, again, that's a separate question, but that question too is not entirely clear, I would say.
You want this?
Well, doing glob is kind of a pain in the ass. It can be, for now.
Yeah,
if
but
glob
if you
in what?
But the first thing somebody's going to do if they're looking for files is Google Python how to find files. and they will get glob and instructions on how to use glob. They will not get our file underscore search routine. Right?
Well, that is, well, they're,
And
I mean, if you're going
they
to
will
say they're going
learn
to
how
not
to use
use our documentation, I mean, that I don't know if that's a great argument, Steve. I mean, we're going to find places where we're going to be implementing things that we think will be useful for SunPy, even though there might be more general ways to achieve it in Python. The question is whether file search is going to be a common way that people are going to have to look for data inside data hierarchies. I'm not saying we should re-implement it, but if you're going to download data from a source that actually stores an internal folder structure in it, something like file search could be really useful, especially if that hierarchy is a little tricky.
Okay, I guess my two answers to that is one, I think if this is just going to be I mean, this is a lot. If you look at what he wrote here, I mean, it's like the ratio of documentation to actual code is ridiculous. I mean, it's like 4 lines of code. So it's really providing very small amount of functionality compared to you just writing it. I also disagree with the premise of it, which is that we're trying to, provide an IDL thing to users, which is a bit of a crutch. They should just learn how to use standard Python tools generally. And then finally, all that stuff should be moot because it should get itself registered in the database, and then we can provide like file searching capabilities in the database.
Yeah, but not everyone is going to use the database. We do still have to provide the ability to access stuff off of disk. Now, I'm not using that as a argument for file search. I was just using it as an argument against your point. Because I also don't particularly want to use file search. I think it's I mean, I'm not necessarily against it because it's so. 5 people and a dog are going to use it. Like, I don't think it's going to. Basically, I think only people coming from SolarSoft who look for an equivalent to files are going to use it. That's true. When they should use
that may not be too many people either. I mean, I personally didn't know that this program existed in SSW either. So.
I'm sorry, Andy, what was the first part of that?
I mean, it may not be very many people who even know that this function existed in SolarSoft, first of all. So it's not. I mean, I didn't know about it, and I use SolarSoft a lot. But so it's not clear like that there's going to be that much overlap. But that's not necessarily a deciding factor on. I mean, it's just a convenience function for SunPy. Do we want to have a convenience function that does this or not? It doesn't matter what was in SSW or not. To me, anyway.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of overhead. I mean, we'll have to maintain this. We'll have to maintain the docs on this, and it's 3 lines of code.
Right, but it's a hefty list comprehension. I mean, it's there are things to make users' life easier.
Yeah, but if we were
point out that while we're discussing this, no offense to the man, but Dan did write it, and he's probably one of the newer, not very experienced Python people that we have come into this project. Like, you're right, he can code Python, he's done some before, but it's not like he's like one of us who's been doing it for years, and Python is his first language, only true and he's going to work out how to do it. So it's not like it is critically impossible for a relatively new user.
Now let's do a transformation of variables.
Yes, but I mean, there's still the notion of convenience, right? If some user's going to be typing this comprehension in repeatedly, I mean, they're going to come up with some other way to do it. I mean,
yeah, and then they can come up with their own, convenience functions that they maintain in their own library.
Yeah, but
We
why?
can't-
I mean, is it against SunPy's philosophy to provide convenience?
I think the answer to this is that if the blob2 package exists, then they should use it. You can pip install blob2 and you can use blob2 to do the same job.
It just stops stressing about it.
Is that a one-liner?
If there is already a Python tool that exists to do it, I don't think we should replicate it.
Right. Oh wait.
Well, I agree with that, but it's love to provide the same thing as like a one-line piece of code. Because I went away and Googled this as well, and then I didn't. When I looked at all the forums, actually, it does seem like it's a pain to search directories recursively. Like there's not like a really simple one-liner to do it.
Well, what you're talking about here specifically is glob2, a
Yeah.
separate package. I mean, that would.
And yeah, does that do it? I don't know.
It does. It does do the recursion nicely, but I don't know. Someone could answer this one whether it can do the pathing here. Okay. Well, if I had written files, path would have been a little stronger on this one then. I would accept path to be a list itself, or a generator. To be able to search multiple paths, because just sheer recursion, I don't think is actually.
See the link that I put in the chat.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they do show how to do recursive searches.
It is one line where you just do start instead of start.
The DY is cancel?
Like this.
On the page? Like the extension up. Yeah, it's true. Okay, so we have here.
You can't do star in the chat.
Apparently not. No, you can't. It's start anyway. Apparently this is. No.
I mean, also, if you just type in Python, Python, how to search directories recursively, the code that probably Dan is using, or found himself, is right there. It's the first search result. It has 310 upvotes on Stack Overflow. This is a standard problem that has been solved. It's not something that we need to provide a solution to.
We were fighting. It's about convenience. The question is, how far do we go?
We cannot rely on people who read our documentation. People will poke into the documentation.
That's fine. Some people, no matter what we provide, will re-implement their own solutions to things that already exist. That's a problem that's going to happen, whether it's file search, whether it's whatever other convenience functions we have. You know, we provide ways to convert one thing to another. They'll re-implement their own way to convert. They might re-implement their own unit systems, unit conversions. Who knows? You can't. That's not a very strong argument for not having this. If we can project our users are going to be typing in a list like this or a list comprehension like this over and over, it is something that arguably could be included in SunPy. Now, whether a user is aware of that, that's a separate issue. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have it.
To my mind, because this functionality exists in blob2 and you can install that in one line, we shouldn't have it. Because to my mind, we shouldn't implement something that already. We shouldn't re-implement something that already exists in Python unless there's a very good reason to do so. And to my mind, installing another module is not a very good reason.
I hate dependencies. And it wouldn't be dependency here, of course.
I'm not saying we're having any dependency. If the user wants to use it, they can install it.
You're right.
If you're using Python, you have to be able to install different Python modules. It's a modular system. If you're on a system where you can't easily install extra Python modules, you need a better Python distribution.
Okay.
Well, we spent a long time discussing a small number of lines.
That is it. We're not talking about this anymore.
Actually, I know that
Put your votes on the pull request, and we'll finish this argument on there. We have other things to do this meeting.
All
This
right.
is not one of them.
Pretty sure it's me.
I'm making executive decisions.
Version? Nasty presence.
I have no damage left to give. Right. Let's do a demo. That we have, and actually I'm going to give.
Okay.
You can fight over who goes first. I don't mind.
I can't understand anything Stuart's saying, by the way.
I'm sorry. Someone, one of you two go first. Deploy.
What are we deploying?
Okay, Ashish, do you want to go first?
I'm not sure, you can also. Alright, I will go first because mine will be less time taking. Alright, so
Yeah, fine.
I've been working to quantify everything related, everything in SunPy. So everything that takes anything related to quantity will be related will be it is I will show you a demonstration of how it will show the output. All right. So first of all, uh, let me begin with the simplest, a very simple module that is Sun. This one from. So generally, it involves function that is used to calculate all the distance and okay. So so here, it was earlier not giving any information about the unit, but now it gives information about the unit, that is the degree. So what I have made changes is that it's nothing really very big change. It's just that I've modified it to given unit, and that is the Astro unit. And I've made similar changes to all the related modules, which, for example, the transformation module, this one, wait a minute. I'll send you the link where I've all made the changes. This one. So all the changed file have been listed here, and this PR is also pending, which requires one more approval of one more member, so it can be merged. And my the main change that uh, um, okay, so earlier in this VSO query, we when giving an when setting a value for the wave, we were not entering any unit, but now we will. So these changes have been reflected to the files which for example in database there are many places that this VSO is used, so it is changed accordingly. Now, there's also well, this is mostly with the VSO change that the wave will not take an input and display accordingly. But if we uh, if we would wait, let me show. I'm not really good at talking at this. So we are here setting the values for the search to. I mean, we are setting a search queries, but
Wrong quotes.
alright, as you can see, it is performing normally, but if you're going to display records, it will not show units in this part because we have to change it from the XML side, which I do not really understand well. But David said that we cannot change it here because of some reasons. I'm not really sure about that. That the it in this format, so we cannot display it like 171 angstrom. It has to be in separate waveunit. So wavemin, wavemax will be in separate. So this is basically the changes made in VSO, which will take an AstroPy input to be more explicit to the user, so that the units are more explicit. And from this PR, you can see the files that I have changed here, and mostly they are functions which gives an output as a quantity. So every quantity has a unit specified to make it more explicit. For example, the change in the sun model that I showed you earlier, which mark everything is a quantity, so users won't get really confused. And I have also removed this file as told by Steve and David. This unit conversion because it is no longer needed. We can easily now convert any unit.
How long
Right.
phone cables?
Don't know. No, I was thinking the better solution rather than.
This unit to so we don't need any functions that converts one unit from another. So this uh, module unit conversion that we have, which was in the directory util, has to move. It had functions which converted units, but we will require it after it has been quantified. So this is basically my project. I have issued this PR, created this pull request. It requires one more thumbs up from one more member. I've also this list some of the files which have been quantified. The spectra type, the spectrum and the maps model I'm working on it right now. Spectra is completed and maps is also completed, but tests are failing. Spectra is passing, but maps are failing. And once I'm sure, I will create a pull request for the maps too. So this is basically it. And half of the project involves integrating WCS, astropy.wcs into this SunPy.wcs. So once I finish that, that will be my project. So this is basically it.
Nice. That's cool. It'd be nice to have everything in proper units.
Yeah, just as I was following along, I gave you, I think, the final +1 that you needed. It just needs to pass the tests, which I think you need to merge in the latest changes, but it looks great.
I shall take it from here. Well, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. I'm doing the Unified Downloader project. The requirement for this project would be like for API consistency, because currently the map module does not deal with downloading any files or stuff like that. And in the light curve code, you have you have stuff related to downloading. So separating that out for API consistency. And the second reason would be the second plan that I think Stuart has for it is integrating the database and the light curve module. Currently, the database has a database.download method which queries the VSO. So instead of querying the VSO, you would like it to query the unified downloader. So yeah, those are the two reasons. So that would allow, like, if it queries the unified downloader, then it can also get light curve data. So that would be the first step for integration of light curve and database. Then moving on. Okay, now I'll start my screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Is it visible? My terminal.
Maybe we can actually fix
I hope so. This is the unified downloader. It has a query method and a get method. Those are the two main methods that it will have. Will be viewable to the user. And I'll explain you how the query method works. In this case, basically, your clients we have for the query. This unified downloader is just the middleman. What I do is I get the query, I understand which client, which whether it's whether you want a file from Eve, so you have an Eve client for that. So I get the query, I understand which client is which client is required to service that query, and after that I just and then this method dot query method returns to you whatever that client returns. Basically, I'm just pushing whatever that client's query method returns, and I give it back to you over here. The query method returns the unified response object. A unified response object is a list. It's a modified. It has some other methods, but it is basically a list of query responses. Now, query responses are what is returned by a singular client. So a VSO.query returns you a query response, and and there's an Eve client. So an Eve client.query will return you a unified response. So suppose I require a query which I give over here. If I do something like instrument Lyra, and over here I would require two clients, so I would have two query responses. So going along over here, this returns a unified response object, and showing showing the number of clients that this method. Basically, this num records unified response.num records gives you the number of clients that were required to service the request. So over here, as I'm just having one instrument, that's Eve, so I'll require just one client. Now going to the query response object returned by the Eve client. This is a method which tells you that the time range was for 2 days. So I'll be downloading two files. These are the two files. Going forward, now there is this other method, unified downloader.get. Now to that you just pass whatever was returned by the .query method. This method will return to you a results object. Results object is what you have when you do a VSO.get, VSO client.get. These are results object. Now this will return just one. This is a list. This res object would be a list, and it will have one results object related to the query. And to download the files are in download, but if you want to, suppose you have to wait, so then you have this wait method of the object results object. Now this would wait for the download to complete, and when it completes, it returns as normal the file part to the download where the file has been downloaded.
Hey Rishab, do I see a bug here or something? The start time and end times are the same for both files. Are you the 21st to 22nd? Are you just showing the start time and end time of the query, or the start time and end time of the file itself?
I'm showing it for the query.
Ah, okay.
If probably this is a bug, I'll have a look over it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, to me, it seems like it would make more sense to show the start and end time of the file, since you have the file listed right there on that line. But
not sure how easy that would be to extract for things like LightCurve, where you only generate a URL.
No,
it might be possible, but it would probably take fiddling in the downloader.
Well, now I have other two examples. They are the same. Excuse me, could you please hold on? There's someone knocking on the door. I'll have to answer to that. Well, this is a query. It uses two instruments. I want Lyra and Nobiyama data for some time range. Now this should have, because I'm having over here two instruments, this answer should be 2. It is. I see I see the response, the dot show method of the query response objects that are there inside.
Have we lost him?
I thought it was my internet, which frequently cuts out.
This is looking good though.
Yeah, looking really good.
Well, while we wait for him to come back, Stuart, maybe you know, do you have to, can you do the wait directly when you do the, just the get? Can you
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's not actually that straightforward.
it seems like having an extra line is unintuitive. To me, anyway.
The problem is because you're returning it. What get does is it calls the get method of every client. So I'm pondering how to create one almighty wait method. I don't know.
It's powerful, Chris.
I don't know how easy that is because those results objects are pretty weird.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, are you back?
I'm sorry, there's some problem with my laptop. This is the second time that's happened, and it's rebooting. So that was the example. I was going to show another example using that would have used the VSO client underneath, but due to this unknown problem, I'm sorry for that. So comments for that for the unified downloader.
Okay, well, thank you for the demo. It looks really good. A lot of progress. I had one question. I was looking at the at your code, and so you had to unify the map, well, the meta information, essentially. Could you tell me how you've done that? Because the header information is sort of a mess in the light curve side of things.
Well, I just regarding it requires in the show method I am using that. There are just some for the light curve. There is basically for a lack of knowledge, you can say. I just have some attributes like source, who's the provider, and that way. There is no real, you could say, uniformity to it, but there are 4 attributes that I've figured out. It requires more probably.
So that's the underscore make IMAP function that yeah. Okay.
There are probably bugs, and I'm sorry for that. in the information. I
There's
wasn't sure.
um,
Yes.
Well, I think it is Steve's internet this time.
it's what? Sorry.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
are.
Am I back? I was just saying that for some sources there is very little metadata, so adding it this way is fine. But for other sources, am I gone again?
No, you're clear.
Okay. For other sources like Go's, it actually does have a lot of metadata, which you're currently throwing out.
I have not even ported the Go's.
What do you mean by throwing out? I don't. What are you talking about?
Sure.
So it seems like he implements for every source he implements a function called, where is it? _make IMAP, which seems to create the header object, the meta object. If I'm looking at this properly.
Well, that was the idea.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I think that just makes something like when you actually make the light curve, it's like you still have all the header information.
No, I think it at least if I understand this implementation correctly, it actually gets thrown out now. While before it would kind of return random things, whatever was available in some ways.
Well, this is just for the downloading of the file.
So this is
just for the downloading of the file.
So this doesn't. This just gets you.
It's just a way of passing the information through the unified downloader. It's when you create a light curve object, it just reads the file.
I see. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I was thinking object, but this just gets the files themselves. Okay.
Yeah, the whole point of this is that it's a VSO-like workflow for light curve. So it's removing disassociating the download and the object creation.
Right. Yep. Okay.
You can use similar and or the methods you use for VSO. That all can be done.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
For other grounds.
Yeah. I have the unified downloader object is it's a factory, isn't it? So it's the unified downloader name is an instance of the factory class, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Would we want to consider just having like, instead of calling a unified downloader, just have like SunPy download, something like that?
It can't live in the top namespace. Well, that's what it could, but that's not really the way we organize other things.
Sure, SunPy.net.download or something like that, and
Yeah,
you just.
that was one of the things that we were needed to think about, is how we're going to call this and how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
I think, yes, potentially having the downloader instance in the top namespace or something like downloader might work. The other thing we need to decide is what we're going to do with the attributes and where we're going to, in what bit of API we're going to put those.
Yeah. And does this unified downloader register the files to the database currently, or is that in the future?
No, that what will happen is that we'll replace the VSO query bit of the database package so that it uses the unified downloader. So if you want to register results with the unified downloader to the database, you query the unified downloader through the database, the same way you do with VSO.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if that's how we want to do it, but
yeah, it is.
That's up.
It detaches the download from the database. It makes the database optional.
Yeah. But we could have a workflow where it downloads, checks whether you have a database, and then.
No, because if you have a database, you just use the database. There's no need for fancy magic because the syntax is exactly the same. You just use the database like you use the database.
Yeah, this is a higher level.
At the moment. Okay, I have a couple of other smaller suggestions that I'll talk to you about later. Let's do other things. Anyone got anything else they want to talk about? Comments, etc.?
Nope, this is great.
I had identified issues with issues like I think some bugs in like, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but I'll call it RHESI, RHEESI light curve. The get URL for time range just returns one URL over there. I think it returns only the first the file the URL corresponding to the first day in the time range. That is one thing I identified. And for other NOAA light curves, there are two, I think. I don't think that light curve, the get URL for time range, and it just returns two files. And for the second one, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the second one, but the first one does not return a list. It just returns one string.
Yeah, I had identified that problem previously. We didn't have any way to download multiple files, which was just added recently, so I didn't even bother, because I think it would raise an error or something if I returned a list of files when I did that. So it needs to be updated, essentially, because now we can download multiple files.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Would it be easier for you to patch that scheme? I can't remember who I bribed to finish the rest of the multi-file download. It was you, wasn't it?
I have tests for that. I have to write tests for that.
You could add the oh no, I mean, yeah, the same. To be, is there any point doing that? Because is it not just fixed by your PR anyway? Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Doesn't matter. I think Rajul had something he wanted to add. Rachel? I can't hear you.
This guy has a sick large laser battle.
Still don't seem to be able to hear you, Rachel.
He should be shooting his laser.
Hey, Stuart, what did you just say?
Is it? I don't seem to be able to hear Rachel.
Right there. Oh. There we go.
No.
If there isn't anything else that people want to discuss, then I suggest we can end the meeting.
Rachel wanted to say something about the Mozilla Sprint thing, but I think its microphone died. There's a
I see.
link in the sidebar.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Here. Well.
Who is doing the sprint?
I
Mozilla.
can talk about it if Rajul cannot do.
Sure, go for it.
All right. So the Science Lab Summer Sprint, I haven't told much about that, but it's part of the software carpentry and the science lab for Mozilla. They have chosen tomorrow and the day after tomorrow to do a sprint on multiple kind of projects. Mostly are all related with software carpentry, and I don't know if you know what software carpentry is. The project, like it was where, remember that Stuart was participating in a workshop during what was like 3 months ago or so in Madrid. So it's like a 2 days boot camp where you teach mostly to undergrads that are going to start the PhD to get familiar with the computer, all the tools like Git, databases, shell scripting, and Python or R programming in principle. So they have a like huge network, and they have set these 2 days for contributing in different projects for the sprint. And Rajul was telling me before that SunPy is one of the projects that they have moved forward to do this sprint. So I have been able to participate in the last 2 calls that the Science Lab and the software carpentry were doing in the last 2 weeks. But I imagine that anyone can join. So if you want to do a sprint on something, you can either join one of the projects or add extra one. Since I'm in 2 already, I couldn't. I was not up to any other one. Which is
Hey, David,
the one that I'm going to be participating is in the translation of the software carpentry into material into Spanish, and the other one is to tailor the examples of software carpentry into astrophysics domain. But both were pointing towards software carpentry, but any other project can be added to the list.
Hey, David, I was just looking at the website, and it seems like these are in-person sprints. Is that right?
Most of them are based on places, but there is also like remote participation. In my case, I'm going to be remotely, and the project I'm going to be helping in, I don't think that there is any in-place location that the people is going to be working in. But if you are close to any of those places, probably you are. I don't know if probably there's some places there that they will be available for you to go.
Yeah, well, there's no place in DC. There's one in New York. Austin, San Francisco. I don't know.
No,
I pasted another link which I found at the software carpentry. Seems to have a little bit more information than what was pasted. I'm sorry, I actually have to go. I have another meeting. So I'll sign off now.
It's tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So if you can go tomorrow, fine. If you can go the day after, good as well. Or participate.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. On that note, I suggest we finish unless anyone has anything else to add. Any more for anyone? No? Okay. Well,
Good.
good meeting, guys. Thanks a lot.